All right, we will go ahead and begin if everyone is ready. First off, I just want to say good afternoon and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this year's Pollution Prevention webinar series. Today's webinar is entitled TVA EnergyRight, your partner for energy efficiency improvements. This webinar is being put on by the Tennessee Green Star Partnership Program in collaboration with TVA. My name is Caleb Powell, and I am an environmental scientist for the Office of Sustainable Practices at TDEC, and I will be hosting the webinar today for our wonderful speaker. So just a couple housekeeping items. Everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise, but if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to ask those in the chat, and I will work on getting those asked for our presenter, Eileen, to answer that. And we definitely want these webinars. We think that there's a lot of benefit to question and answer. So if there's anything that you see, a case study that you see during this webinar that you want to ask more information about, or have some ideas or just a comment, put those in the chat box. And what I'm doing right now is I'm sending a chat to everyone. You should see that on your right-hand side of your screen. And just whenever you're sending that, make sure that in that drop down where it says send to, that it's either all participants, all panelists, or the word host is in that, just so that make sure that I'll be able to see that and make sure that that question or comment gets vocalized. So just to give an overview of what's going to be covered today, TVA EnergyRight for Business and Industry they partner with local power companies across TVA's 7-state region to bring energy efficiency, demand response, efficient electrification, and renewable energy programs to approximately 10 million people, and 800,000 businesses. During this webinar, the EnergyRight staff is going to provide an overview of their programs and speak about incentive offerings with industrial examples. The presentation will cover the Strategic Energy Management Program, also called Save It Forward, the Federal Energy Services Program, and different compressed air trainings that are offered. So I am excited to introduce our speaker for the webinar today. Eileen Walkington is the program manager for TVA's EnergyRight for Business and Industry programs. She is responsible for the energy efficiency and electrification incentive programs with current measures, lighting, HVAC, forklifts, and custom, which includes compressed air, which we're going to be talking quite extensively about today. She also manages the Preferred Partners Network, which is the trade ally network that has exclusive access to the incentive offerings. She's been in the TVA EnergyRight organization since 2009 in roles providing analytics, marketing, communications, design, and implementation. She makes Tennessee and Florida her home and holds a bachelor's degree from Tennessee Tech University. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on over to you, Eileen, and we're excited to hear what you got to say.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for extending the invitation to come and talk about one of my favorite things, the EnergyRight programs. He kind of alluded to that I'll be talking about our incentive program, a little bit about a couple of Save It Forward on our federal FESP program. At TVA, we use a lot of acronyms, so as I'm going along, if I shoot out an acronym, I'm welcome to, stop me and I'll complete it. So I'm going to run through the incentives relatively quick so I can share a couple of compressed air examples with you. I do want to make a note, I'm not technical, so if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of how things are installed, that type of thing, I won't be able to help you. But I'm great at sharing examples of projects that have gone through the program. So let's go ahead and get started. TVA was started in about 90 years ago with the TVA Act, and in that act, it informed TVA to provide energy, environmental stewardship, and economic development. And so anytime you see our goals or our mission, they do tie back to these three items. And with the incentive program, it kind of overlaps and does contribute to all of those three buckets. So recently, not recently, but in the last year, TVA is shifting back to energy efficiency. And the energy efficiency in these programs are available through partnerships with the local power companies. And we want to help the end-use customers benefit through the system, make life better for the people of the valley. And so there's three kind of areas. There's the maintain a virtual power plant, and that's where energy efficiency can apply the energy savings, preventing TVA from having to add another asset or build another power generation. Also, there's a group of programs that focus on community energy efficiency, and that sometimes is for low income or the underserved communities. Currently, there's something that specifically reaches out to schools, and then also some small businesses in the area. And then, of course, want to promote clean energy services, and that ties back to transportation, EV fleets, and generating clean power. And this is just kind of goes into the virtual power plant information for energy efficiency strategy. So we're going to leverage the partnerships we have with LPCs and with customers. We're going to offer co-branding opportunities to help let our programs have economies of scale and be highlighted in certain platforms. And then also review real-time program performance. So should we be running hot, getting too much energy efficiency or not enough? There's different program levers and adjustments we can make to make our offerings rightly sized for the current need and demand. And so I work on the business and industry side, so my programs are designed for commercial and industrial customers. And then there's also residential. And along with commercial and industrial, it also includes our direct served customers and federal. So let's get into the incentive program piece. So again, who are the commercial and industrial and federal customers? Just about anything and everything in the valley outside of your homeowner. So federal customers, that could be your Redstone Arsenal, that could be NASA, that could be the FBI, that could be your post office, industrial. I hope that's your group where you're manufacturing. And then commercial could be your small office, retail, vet office, small restaurant, those type of things, ballpark. We also, incentives are available for municipalities, cities, and also our local power companies can take advantage of these incentives. And so in order to access the incentives, you need to use a preferred partners member. This is a trade ally network, and they are kind of like our sales force. And so it's a lot easier to train 300 companies to how to apply for the incentive and go through our program process than it is to have a customer burden with learning that and implementing the energy efficiency pieces. So a lot of times we'll refer people to a PPN member so they can get a scope of work, decide to go forward with the project. The PPN will then go through the application piece, install, and move on the project after approval. So an overview of the program incentive offerings. A lot of times those are based on technologies. And so we have indoor and outdoor lighting. We have thermal ice storage, UVGI in-duct mounted HVAC system. That's the light that goes in the duct system to kill bacteria and germs, not kill, inactivate those particles. And then HVAC incentives, and heat pumps. That also includes dual fuel heat pumps and variable refrigerant systems. Forklifts, currently that's available, and custom energy efficiency. That is for anything that doesn't have a standard offer. The standard offer is a replacement, this or that, a widget for widget replacement. On custom, sometimes that could, and this really applies to your group, something unique, something within your facility that may need, it could be compressed air, it could be chillers, it could be a lot of things, and we'll go through some other items later in the presentation. So LED lighting, it's indoor and outdoor, so you can upgrade any of your lighting to LEDs, or since LEDs have come along, you may have old LEDs and want to replace those, because there's some energy savings in that. An example of a lighting incentive project, here it was industrial companies. They operated 3 shifts, 7 days a week, 24/7, and they upgraded for metal headlights and fluorescent lights. They had about 1,200, 1,300 fixtures, and in that, they received a $90,000 incentive and saved quite a bit on their energy savings each year. HVAC systems, this is an incentive as well. I went back through our program and projects, and I haven't seen that many HVAC system upgrades or replacements for industrial facilities. However, if you have an office, you know, and you have a system there, that could possibly be available for incentive. Electric forklifts, this is where we would replace, if you're going from a gas forklift to an electric forklift, you could receive an incentive. Or if you're expanding your fleet and adding additional electric forklifts. And so this is limited to replacing your internal combustion forklift, class 4 and 5, to the class 1 and 2 electric motor forklift. So it's $200 if you purchase it per unit per forklift, and $1,000 if you lease the forklift. And so here's an example of just, you know, an industrial customer. He had a very large facility, and I think he had maybe almost 40 forklifts, and he didn't convert all of them. However, they were able to get $2,000 per forklift purchase. Here's the UVGI incentive. That's just a duct-lighted UVG light inserted into the coil area to deactivate particles. Thermal ice storage. This project has recently been done in Mississippi for the universities. And then custom. Here you could do chiller systems, refrigeration, compressed air, indoor agriculture. Of course, there has to be a food type crop, and it would have to be energy efficiency. So I couldn't imagine an indoor agriculture business starting with metal halides or something like that because of the heat that they give off. But if they did, that would be eligible. Or if there's some type of process or product line, something like that in that agricultural piece. Food processing, you know, there's lots of things individual to that industrial business, and that's where custom is. We may not have had it labeled that we have an incentive of $1,000 if you purchase an incentive and purchase a forklift. So this is our big bucket. So if you think you have a job that would be saving energy, please reach out to a contractor or someone on the EnergyRight D&I team, and we can kind of evaluate it and see if what the likely incentive would be. It's 10 cents per kWh annual savings, and so that's a pretty great incentive, especially if you're really becoming more efficient. Here are a couple of the compressed air system projects. This one particular project, it was kind of interesting because they had one compressed air system working, another one that wasn't working, and so and that was the one compressed air system that was working was 350 horsepower, and they replaced that with two 175 horsepower horsepower compressed air systems. And it was interesting because they were just running on that one, and they were able to use to, replace it for two. The second example was, again, another industrial facility. They operated two small compressors, and it featured an off and on control, so it was 6 speed, and they only operated it at 60% of their peak load. And so to improve the operating efficiency, they upgraded the compressed air system with one larger compressor. So here they're going from two fixed speeds. I think that they were small. The two fixed speeds were 25 horsepower. And so with the program, they replaced those two with one 60 horsepower, and then also did the variable frequency drive to eliminate that on and off control, so that way they could gauge their energy use during slower production or higher production. And they actually saw 60% annual savings. So that was pretty big, especially when compressed air is such a high intensity energy use equipment. And then example number 3, this one, they had 4 existing compressed air units, and they had very variable production operations. So it seemed like different products that they produced would have different shifts and different needs for the air compressor. So what they did was they added a 5th air compressor. So they got a new 60 horsepower air compressor, and they added that variable frequency drive in there, and that way they were able to control the motor frequency to slow down, speed up, and that really, really helped them meet the plant's fluctuating needs because they had so many different types of products that they were running. And so it's interesting here. So they had the 4 compressed air systems, and they added a 5th one, and yet they still were able to save energy and receive an incentive. Oh, let me go back one more. And then also, just to let you know that we don't necessarily need a system to be aged. It could be a brand new compressed air system that you have, but it'd be the wrong type or the wrong size for your application. And so what we're looking at is the existing, what you had before, and your new need, does that save energy? And so that's kind of looked at for all technologies, not only just compressed air. And we have a group of engineers, so we will help you set that baseline. So once the contractor PPN submits the application, we will have our engineers go out, look at the project, determine the base load, baseline, and then we will approve the project. And once the project is approved based on the scope and the pre-inspection, then you can begin your project. We ask that you do not purchase equipment remove equipment, and of course not install equipment until we give you approval. That way we can go out, see the baseline, and then after the project is installed, we will go back out, the engineers will go back out, if needed, set up the meters. For the compressed air systems, it looks like the average metering time was about 7 to 10 days. So that's where they're getting the energy information. Say a week of run time. So once it's installed, the engineers review the project. They will lock down the energy savings and will pay based on that finding. And also, after they complete the pre-inspection, we're also, at that time, estimating an incentive. And so, ballpark on what the incentive will be at that time. The contractor can also estimate that, but there has been times when what the contractor saw and then what the scope of work was, kind of varied from the time they sold the job. Maybe you communicated a couple of different changes, and so if those couple of extra changes make a difference, then our engineering team will catch that on the pre-side before you start your project and help you make any adjustments like that. But that's a very rare occasion that would happen. And then also, if you have a project and you either self-install, say maybe you have a maintenance staff to self-install your lights, we offer an opportunity for you to purchase those lights from a PPN member, one of our contractors. But for instance, if you didn't, say you were using a Lean's lighting service to purchase your lights, I don't recommend that you use that company because that's me. But anyway, it's so hard to make jokes when I can't see anybody. But anyhow, we will make a one-time exception that you can use your contractor. So if that comes up, and especially with the larger projects that are very sensitive to your unique process or your whatever type of production or anything like that, we find that you do have a contractor that you want to use, but they may not be in our PPN network, primarily because it's a unique process, or there's just not that many jobs happening, or they're just your favorite contractor and you want to use them. So we will make an exception for that. Just get us involved in the front end. And also, EnergyRight.com has all the information that I'm sharing with you today, pretty much. And so that's always a good place to check, update on incentives, what incentives are available, that type of thing. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Save It Forward. This is one of the programs that are in our community-based program as well as an incentive type of program. So Save It Forward is a educational program that helps qualifying industrial customers achieve their goals and lower carbon emissions, increase profits, and reduce energy consumption, and support their communities by reinvesting savings. And so that is kind of like a thought of pay it forward. So if you have incentive dollars that you save, then you could perhaps reinvest that in your community. And so with this, it's an SAM program that covers 2 years. It costs no money to participate. And currently, we're seeing that participants are having energy savings add up to about 5 or 15%. And so that's a great savings on your bill as well. The part of this that becomes involved in the incentives is that during those, the educational series of, consulting services through the FEM, you'll identify potential projects, energy saving projects, and that then you could go on and receive an incentive from TVA as well for actually implementing the ideas or the lessons learned for improvement. And so FESP, I always call it FESP because it's the Federal Energy Service Program. And this is another community-based type program. And so they want to really support resiliency, reliability, and sustainability. And so FESP is in place to actually help federal entities execute the Department of Energy's requirements. And so there may be executive orders that come down, federal mandates, or certain efficiency goals that they're under pressure to achieve. And there's a FESP team that will work with that federal customer, the NASA's, the Redstone Arsenals, military bases, to achieve those goals. And it can be energy or water goals, that type of thing. And this also crosses over to the incentive program. So while they're helping, the team's helping meet some of those sustainability goals that are required, there may be projects identified for incentives. You know, maybe there's cafeteria food service, ovens, dishwashers, that type of thing. That can be improvement and potential available for incentives. And then I also hadn't thought about this in a while, but for industrial customers, a lot of times you have a lot of employees working and you have a little cafeteria. And so we could also put energy savings into the custom bucket to help anything that you may have in your cafeteria. You know, whether it's an electric oven to electric oven, you know, some type of process that becomes saving you energy. So it's not just on that production line. It could be your warehouse, offices, or cafeterias. It could also be outdoor lighting. You know, that's a real safety concern. So outdoor lighting, not only can it help you save energy, but also help safety issues with your employees. The forklifts, you know, not only could you, you know, get the incentive from us, but because they're electrical, they have less they have less maintenance costs. It helps the indoor air quality for your employees. And I think the only downside that I can think of in electric forklifts, and again, I'm not technical, so there's probably a million, but is that electric runs quieter. And so that's two sides to the coin. You could view it. It runs quieter so it doesn't hurt my ears, or it could be it runs quieter and you have to be more concerned about making sure that your forklift area is roped off and safety, you know, be more safety concerned, preventative for a quieter electric forklift. Also, electric forklifts have less vibrations, and so that is a safety measure that helps your employees with vibrations with the electric forklift. Compressed air training and support, we're getting kind of close to the end. And so definitely get your questions ready and let me know where we need to back up, as I have run through this quite quickly. So we're offering compressed air training because we realize that compressed air is a large energy user, and there's a lot of room for improvement. Because sometimes you may need to identify what you need to know. And so I think one of the compressed air examples, and I don't think I called it out, it might have been written on the slide, was that they had pressure volatility with their compressed air. And so once they got that fixed with the new system, it was an energy savings. And so it was a hassle because of the pressure level, and sometimes was just when it got to become an issue, a light came on, and so you had to have staff watching for the light, or maybe staff wasn't looking for the light, but there was some automation and controls that could be implemented with the new system. And one, it delivered the air effectively at the right volume, And then also the safety issue. No one had to watch for the light. It could be reassured that it was at a safe level. But, you know, back to this compressed air training and support. It's two mornings. First morning's 4 hours, the second morning 4.5 hours, and it really just covers a lot of information. You don't have to be an expert, just kind of interested in compressed air, kind of be aware of what your facility system is. But even if you don't know and you're just interested, don't hesitate to sign up for the program, for the training. We currently have been offering it on a quarterly basis, and so our next upcoming class is the 18th and 19th. I think that's a Tuesday and Wednesday, but registration does close on the 14th, which is at the end of this week. So if you're interested in attending, I ask that you go to EnergyRight.com and then the business and industry section and the compressed air training page. And then you just click on there and just fill in your information and you'll be registered. And even if you are a guru and you want some continuing education units, 0.7, you'll earn that. It seems like a lot of time for just a 70% of a CEU. Okay, well there, I'm kind of at the end. I'm looking forward to some questions or requests for more information. I was telling Kevin earlier that this is my favorite topic. I can talk about this forever and ever and ever, but I was just going to kind of give you a brief overview. And if you need a deeper dive on anything, I'm here for the end of this webinar, but then also I'm available for more questions offline. And if I don't know the answers, I'll definitely, we have a great team, and someone on our team knows it, or we can find out whatever you need to know.
Hey, Aline, I have a couple questions that came through that I'll send to you, or I'll ask you. The first one is, how do federal projects following the bidding requirements if we are required to use a PPM?
And that's one of the things that we do a one-time exception. So if you want to include that requirement, you can. If not, the federal team, they're aware of the capability for the one-time exception. So, and also to select a contractor, we have two online tools. We have one think of it as like the yellow pages. You select your technology, your area. You can filter by stars, number of projects, that kind of thing. And then also it gives you a feature to contact them, and it'll just shoot them an email. So it's an online directory that you can just email directly to that PPN and say, hey, I got a question about da-da-da-da-da. The other tool is that kind of works like a bidding system. It's a request expert solution. And so you go online, EnergyRight.com, and you enter information about your project, as much or as little as you know about it. And you can say, I'd like to hear from 2 to 5 PPNs. Do you want to hear from 2 PPNs, or do you want to hear from 5 PPNs? You put that in that form. And what we do with your information is we post it on a job board for our PPN, and they pull those down and claim them. And then they will reach out to you and learn more. And so that kind of is like a bidding thing. So you get, it's kind of, I like it because it gives it just enough of information about the project, so PPNs kind of help know if that's a project they'd be interested in. So for instance, some PPNs only do very large lighting projects. And then there's other PPNs that are like more of a mom and pop PPN, and they would do those more smaller office type projects. And so the request expert solutions kind of gives that PPN enough information. Yeah, that's a multi-million-dollar project. I'm interested, and I know my business can handle that. So then they'll reach out to you. Or or it's a larger PPN and they're not interested in a small restaurant or chicken farmers. I always mention the chicken farmers, but you know, upgrading LEDs in poultry farms is really great.
So there was another part of that question, the first question that I asked about the bidding requirements, if they're required to use a PPM, and it said as well as DBE/WMBE/MBE requirements. So you might have already covered that, but I just noticed that was another, like a second part to that question.
I thought TVA was pretty good with acronyms. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what those acronyms are for.
That one's from Lori Morris. Lori, if you want to sort of go into a little bit more depth of what those requirements that you're talking about are, I'll ask those. While she's doing that, I had another question that said, what about refrigeration? An example that he gave was grocery stores.
Yes, absolutely. We're very interested in refrigeration. Right now it's in our custom bucket, but as we evaluate the program to make adjustments for the right needs, refrigeration would be custom, which includes that engineering piece, but we're looking at refrigeration to see if maybe there's a standard option saying, you know, if I do this, I get $200, or, you know, and so with refrigeration, that could be the motors, that could be the doors that you put on refrigeration cases. It could be the lights with, well, we're talking refrigeration. It could be lights within, if you had one of those large refrigeration, like a butcher shop or something like that. But yes, refrigeration. Great catch. Thank you for bringing that up.
This one's more of a comment. It said, would you mind going back to the Forklift page to see if they could do that at their facility?
Yes, as long as they are a business or an industrial or a federal, not residential, and we gauge that based on the NAICS code and the type of meter that you have with your local power company. And so the internal combustion 4 and 5 can be replaced or expanded with the Class 1 and Class 2. And at the end of the lease, if you convert it to a purchase, you would not be eligible for another $2,000. It's just on the beginning, $1,000 at the beginning of the lease, or $2,000 with the forklift purchase.
And then I was thinking maybe we could go back to that custom page as well, just so we could sort of go back over the qualifying units. Yeah, I see refrigeration there.
Yeah, and it's not limited to this. So if there's something that's energy savings, we're interested in it. So it's not limited to what you see listed here.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions come through at the moment. Now, while Eileen was talking through some of the different incentive opportunities and trainings, I tried to input the links to those websites as she was speaking about it. So check the chat box for all of those links, and then I'm sure, you know, I'll include those in the follow-up email that I send out to everybody that registered for this webinar. If anybody has any more questions, please feel free to send those in the chat box. And then, let's see, I'm going to take back over presenting capabilities so we can go back to that last page, let's see, the contact page, so everyone has that. So jot that down, but we'll include this in our follow-up email. So not seeing any more questions come through, so first off, just wanted to thank you, Aline, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about everything that you just mentioned, the incentivized programs and the programs that you work on for business and industry. And then I'd also like to thank everyone that registered and was a part of our webinar audience. We couldn't do these webinars without of course, having an audience. So this is our third of 4 pollution prevention webinars that are happening this year. So please stay tuned and be on the lookout for registration links and webinar invitations for our next one. That'll be happening next quarter. Like was mentioned before, this webinar is being recorded, and the presentation slides and the recording will be available on our website, but they also will be sent out to everybody that registered for this webinar. So if you don't have any more questions, but if you think of a question later on, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have asked that to Aline or to Caleb, feel free to send me an email. Most of you probably already have my email because of the webinar, but my email is Caleb, C-A-L-E-B, Powell, P-O-W-E-L-L, @tn.gov. And like I said, you'll be receiving a follow-up email from me with a lot of this information that you heard and some of that contact information. So really appreciate the time, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Thanks again, Aline.
Thank you.